Next up, a big moment for the WWF. You know, they had enjoyed a lot of success once upon a time, and they're looking for some of that return to glory. So here he comes, the 39-year-old Ultimate Warrior, pinning Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 1 minute and 38 seconds. All it takes is 3 clotheslines, a shoulder block, a press, and a splash, and that's it. And Meltzer would say Warrior got by far the biggest reaction on the show when he came out, but it was amazing to see how quiet the crowd got after the ring intro. But since Helmsley did the pedigree right away and Warrior didn't sell it and they went right to the finish, the crowd picked right back up. Helbig was a little smaller than at his peak, but he's also 39 years old, and he was quite a bit larger and more cut than when he returned last time. It gets a dud here. He's going to squash a heel, though, who's just kind of getting up and going. Just totally shits on the finish of the pedigree. But the reaction, man, if there was any doubt about whether or not this was a good call or the right call, you got to be encouraged when you hear the fans respond like they do. But as a friend of the show once said, then the bell rang. What do you remember about this?
Well, it sucked. I mean, the match itself sucked. It was awful. I think it would have meant a lot more for Warrior to have a bit of a match to versus what he did, because I think that in some ways people were happy to see the greatest hits of the Ultimate Warrior, or the greatest hit
Yes.
of the Ultimate Warrior. But obviously didn't do Hunter any good in this, and it just wasn't good. Just wasn't good. Warrior was difficult to deal with all day long, and as soon as Vince went out to do play-by-play, he became even more difficult to deal with. And at that point, we all agreed, get the match in the ring and do what you got to do, and that's what we did. And hats off to Hunter, who did it. Hats off to Jerry Briscoe having to deal with it all day long. And that's where we were, man. It was not, to me, it was kind of the, here's what we have and here's what we're going to have. It isn't, he's on his best behavior today. Can only go downhill from there. And it did.
Can you tell us, when you said it got worse when Vince went out on commentary? I understand what you mean. He was on his best behavior for Vince, but then it sounds like you were implying when Vince went out and got on the headsets, Warrior became an asshole.
Well, pretty much always stayed an asshole. No, he, at that point, then he changed the match. No, I'm not going to do all that stuff that we talk about. This is what we'll do. So,
wow.
And not good. Not a good experience at all.
Is anybody able to communicate that to Vince on the headset, or is it better just leave it alone and we'll just handle it? And Vince has, other things at hand right now.
I informed him of it in between matches. We don't have commercial breaks, so you have packages or
right
backstages or whatever. I've got a few seconds to talk to him. He just said, "Bruce, get it done." So I got it done.
Well, listen, the fans were excited to see him back, and I was amongst them. I mean, when I heard the Ultimate Warrior was coming back, I was interested, and then the bell rang. In a segment that doesn't air for the live audience, they're doing an interview to introduce the Wild Man Mark Mero here on pay-per-view. He's going to do a heel interview with Helmsley coming out, and the two start arguing and fighting. Helmsley then blames the fight on the woman who they called Sable that accompanied to the ring. And this is really a glimpse into the future, man. I mean, Sable and Hunter are going to be two of your biggest stars just a couple years after this. I don't know that anybody would have necessarily called that here. I think a lot of people hoped and thought it was going to be Mark Mero. You want to give us that Mark Mero impression again? That was good stuff.
It's horrible. He's a wild man. See, that's why I did all that shit, because he's a wild man, Mark Mero.
He's doing like a Tarzan gimmick of sorts, though, but not really.
I don't know what the fuck he was doing. It was like Batman on acid.
He was not Batman.
Well, he was doing the Batman dance kind of thing.
We're going to get the big dudes in here next. Undertaker and Diesel. It's a really long match. I thought it was maybe too long. 16 minutes and 46 seconds. Meltzer would say the match was slow moving and didn't have much heat, but it was better than you'd expect considering who was involved. Diesel basically pounded Undertaker for most of the match, and finally he used his jackknife, then smirked forever, allowing Undertaker to sit up. He did it again, and when he went for the pin, Undertaker grabbed him by the throat. Diesel uses a back suplex. Undertaker sits up again, and then Undertaker finishes Diesel off with a nice flying clothesline, a choke slam, and a tombstone. And the closing scene is pretty iconic. You see Diesel laid out in the middle of the ring, and it always made me wonder, like, this is a fun what if. If Diesel doesn't give notice and he's not leaving, Kevin Nash is not going to WCW. He's sticking around. Does he wind up beating The Undertaker here? Does that end the streak before it ever really becomes a thing?
No.
Okay.
No, he would not have.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a good match. I think that Kev was not in a good place this time. And
just didn't want to be there, ready to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think got Undertaker in a bad place, and we ended up with what we ended up with.
So it rubbed off on him, and then the Undertaker was upset, or what do you mean when you say God?
Yeah, I just think that it just, the attitude and the negativity went over to around everyone that he touched.
I got you. It just brought a cloud over the match and the
right.
I got you. Was there ever any concern that Kevin wouldn't do business on the way out?
I don't think so. I don't think Kevin could be difficult to deal with at times, but I don't think Kevin would ever say, no, I'm not going to do that with a guy like Undertaker.
What did Undertaker think about two staples and Razor Ramon and Diesel leaving? You remember having a conversation with him in this era about how he took that?
Sure. I mean, Taker didn't like it. Taker wished they would have stayed. But then again, with Mark had been there longer, and Mark is loyal. So he wasn't looking to go anywhere, felt Vince had done right by him and didn't want to leave. I don't know that he really understood it. I do know he understood it. I was going to say, I don't know if he really understood what got him to that point. Maybe is the right question.
What do you mean?
What got Razor and Diesel to the point of saying, no, I'm gone. We're out of here. No matter what you throw at me, I'm gone. I think Mark kind of felt, as a lot of us did, that everything can be worked out.
Right.
So
do you believe in that though? That, listen, I understand. And I like the idea of, let's say an NFL player, he starts his career with with a team and he finishes with that team and he goes into the Hall of Fame wearing that team's jersey. I get that. I like that. But are you of the mindset, the mentality that every now and again, people just need a change of scenery?
I do.
Might not be better, might not be worse. It just needs to be different. Do you think that's where they were? They needed something different?
I don't think that's where they were, but I do believe in that.
Yeah.
I think they were in it for an easier schedule and more money.
Nothing wrong with that.
And there isn't anything wrong with it. I'm not knocking it at all.
Yeah.
So